2017 to order. If you'd please stand and join, I'm sorry, February 27th, if you'd please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. And please let the record note that all council members are present, as are all Missoula County Board of Commissioners members present this evening. We'll have some business with them later. I was confused earlier, ladies and gentlemen. We have minutes from the meeting of February 13th, and without objection, they'll be approved. Seeing none, we'll move on to our schedule of committee meetings. Ms. Rabine?
Hi, thanks. The City Council's committee meetings will be meeting this coming Wednesday. It's March 1st. Can you believe it? It's March 1st already. The first meeting of the day will be with the Parks and Conservation Committee, beginning at 9:20 and ending at 9:45. The the Public Works Committee will follow from 9:50 to 10:35. Land Use and Planning meets from 10:40 to 11:20. There is a committee meeting that's being held at the Public House at 130 East Broadway Street from 11:30 in the morning until 1:30. That's the MEP investor meeting, and the Administration and Finance meeting will convene at 1:40 to 2:15, and Committee of the Whole will follow that from 2:20 to 3 o'clock. So all of those meetings, with the exception of the Committee of the Whole meeting from 11:30 to 1:30, are being held right here in the council chambers. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Any changes to that committee schedule? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public comment portion of our agenda. This is your opportunity to comment on items not elsewhere on our agenda this evening.
Candy Matthew Jenkins, 1211 Cooper Street. I wanted to address you, John. I would like to address the article in the February 17th article in the paper. I was impressed with your forthrightness, and I want to say I appreciate that. I have testified many times that alcohol is an entry drug most teens use. Your reference of being 19 to start drinking rings true. The situation, though, is how do you feel now about exposing our youth to all the temptations when there is a brewery on every corner and every event glorifies drinking? That said, your remarks about starting at lunch hit me. Whether or not you become mayor again, I feel the blame these past years of whether or not you were competent to make decisions fall squarely on the city council's shoulders. They knew and they didn't tell. My personal feeling is that this council should be recalled, except for Miss Sweeney, because she hasn't the knowledge. Whether or not you win, I cannot say, but because of the decisions made through this council, one cannot escape speculation that possibly they weren't made for this city, its citizens, or the taxpayers, and they therefore should be recalled in mass.
Any other public comment this evening? Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. My name is Bob Moore. I want to reiterate that I agree with the former speaker just about 1,000%. I often wonder, since the mayor stated that with alcohol or drugs, you're living in a fog, how you were running the city.
Mr. Moore, can I ask you to speak up? I can't understand you.
Yeah, I got a sore throat. I said I agree with the former speaker, okay? Congress Lady Cares, I think it is, wrote a letter to the paper offering, if you're interested in any of these topics or there are more pressing issues, to contact her. I'm trying to contact her now through the entire council and the mayor. Here's a weekly crime report. 53 people. Here's another one, 73 people. These are weekly numbers. Here's another one, 59, and another one of about the same. That's in the city of Missoula. Public records. I guess this is for a week. The paper doesn't say, even though I asked them to put it in there. DUI charges of 16 DUIs. Here's one DUI result who killed somebody. Violent crimes, 2. Sexual offenders, and I really don't know what that means, 3. Let's assume it's per week. So if you want suggestions on what I think you ought to be doing is start running the city in a more business-like manner, a more fair manner, and get things done for the average person instead of the owners of the shopping center. Seems our main emphasis is on the owners of the shopping center or the Fox Hotel and so forth. This was left on my desk today. In most cases, street clearance, particularly for emergency vehicles, mail, city, maintenance, trash, is even worse than walking for clearance on the sidewalks. I request my 2 representatives to do something about that. Why hasn't it already been done? Why has the pruning crew got to write that? This is several letters where people have written you, the mayor, or the letters to the city concerning our tax. I'll just read one of them. Anyone thinking of the tax burden? Question mark. Several others. Are we being bonded to death? The answer to that is yes.
And that's 3 minutes, Mr. Moore.
I've got a quick comment on.
We'll be here next week to hear it.
Okay, I'll wait.
Thank you, sir.
Make sure everybody else stays to 3 minutes, though. I assume you can do that. Thank you.
I have a little leeway as chairman.
I'm sorry?
I have a little leeway as chairman of the committee.
Oh, but not with me. Yeah. Okay, that's okay.
Any other general public comment this evening? All right, with that, we will move on to our consent agenda items. On that agenda were approved unanimously in City Council standing committees, and we save a little time on Monday evenings by considering these items all together. Ms. Rabine will read the list of agenda items aloud. So folks watching on television, those in the audience will know what we're considering, and we'll invite comment on these items before we vote. Ms. Rabine.
Thanks. Tonight's consent agenda is a little bit like War and Peace. There's 16 items. Here we go. The first is to ratify claims in the amount of $411,102.01 for checks that were dated February 21st of 2017. Number 2 is to award the purchase of one 2017 Ford F-150 extended cab pickup for the wastewater treatment plant to Bison Motor Company of Great Falls, Montana, in the amount of $28,743.50, and this is a cooperative purchase with the state of Montana. Number 3 is to approve claims totaling $1,457,071.42 for checks that are dated tomorrow, February 28th, 2017. Number 4 is to approve the water acquisition related claims for checks that are also dated tomorrow, February 28th, 2017, in the amount of, turn the page, $75,468.56. Number 5 is to approve the purchase of one Dodge Charger for the police department from Billion Dodge Chrysler Jeep of Bozeman, Montana for $27,311, with the addition of corner lights, push bumper, center console, and a large integrated display package for a total cost for the vehicle of $31,714. And this also is a cooperative purchase with the state of Montana. Number 6 is to approve the purchase of one 2017 Ford F-250 four-wheel drive crew cab pickup for the street division from Bison Motor Company of Great Falls. Purchase price of $30,196. And this is also a cooperative purchasing agreement with the state of Montana. Number 7 is to adopt a resolution recognizing and acknowledging the Brooks Street Corridor report for the purposes of promoting a healthy pedestrian and transit-friendly vision for future development in the Brooks Street Corridor. I think Mr. DeBari will have a little change to that one later. Number 8 is to direct Development Services staff to distribute draft amendments to Title 20, which is the city's zoning ordinance, Section 20.90.030 2B and E. It's the section that deals with the Historic Preservation Commission's membership for public comment, to conduct a planning board public hearing and then return it to City Council for final consideration. Number 9 is to set a public hearing on March 13th on a resolution amending the City of Missoula Parks Department's annual appropriations, revenues, and budget transfers, including items that were grants and donations not formally added to the budget that increases the total city budget by a total of $207,892. Number 10 is to set a public hearing on, there's a date change from the one that's listed on your agenda. It is March 6, 2017, for a resolution amending the annual appropriations for development services as set forth in the fiscal year 2017 City of Missoula Budget and Capital Improvement Program. Increases the total city budget by $31,950 and appropriate building and general fund in the amount of $31,950 for a total expenditure in order to pay for the yearly building eye subscription maintenance agreement that was not included in the 2017 budget but was previously approved by City Council. Number 11 is to approve and authorize the mayor to execute the software licensing, annual support and maintenance agreement, and statement of work contracts with Workiva WDesk for the purchase, installation, implementation, and training of the WDesk platform software in the amount of $39,128 to be used mainly by the finance staff for creating a streamlined process for presentation and publication of the City of Missoula's annual budget and comprehensive annual financial report, which we affectionately call the CAFR. Number 12 is to adopt a resolution relating to the financing of a proposed urban renewal project. It's the MRL Johnson Street property purchase and design and construction of the Bitterroot Trail segment in Urban Renewal District Number 3, establishing compliance with reimbursement bond regulations under the Internal Revenue Code in the amount in an estimated maximum aggregate. I just can't talk tonight. An estimated maximum aggregate amount of $2.5 million. Number 12 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the quitclaim deed accepting the transfer of Syringa Park, which is located on Lincoln Hills Drive in the Upper Rattlesnake neighborhood, from Missoula County to the City of Missoula. Number 14 is to adopt a resolution affirming the official names and locations of Missoula's 3 primary commuter shared use paths, including Ron's River Trail, the Bitterroot Trail, and the Milwaukee Trail per exhibits A, B, and C that are attached to the resolution. Number 15 is to adopt a resolution approving the municipal acquisition of the water system, supporting commitments and representations made through the condemnation proceedings to ensure access to clean, affordable, and reliable water, and authorizing the mayor to enter into necessary contracts to hire existing Mountain Water employees. And finally, number 16. It's a long one. It's a good one. Adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Missoula, Montana, authorizing the sale, issuance, and delivery of the city's water system revenue bond anticipation note series 2017A and water system revenue bond anticipation note series 2017B in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $140,400,000 to provide money to finance the acquisition of the assets of Mountain Water Company establishing and funding a capital contingency fund, paying post-summons interest and additional defendant attorney's fees in connection with such acquisition, and paying costs of issuing the 2017 notes, fixing the date, form, maturities, interest rates, terms, payment, and redemption proceeds of the 2017 notes, providing for the registration of the 2017 notes, appointing a registrar, providing for the collection, handling, and disposition of revenues, providing for the payment of both the principal of and interest on the 2017 notes by the issuance of its water system revenue bonds, Series 2020, creating and adopting certain funds and accounts, and providing for deposits therein, establishing certain covenants between the City of Missoula and the registered owners, establishing certain events of default, authorizing the execution of continuing covenant agreement and a note purchase contract and an escrow agreement, and providing for other matters properly relating thereto.
Thank you, Ms. Rabine. Mr. DeBar, you had a change to one of the items?
I do, yes. I'd like to offer an amendment to item number 7, which is the Brook Street Corridor Report, to insert the word bicycle in the last line of the resolution, and I will read that for the record. It should now read, or I'm proposing that it should now read, now therefore be it resolved that the Missoula City Council hereby adopts this resolution to recognize and acknowledge the Brook Street Corridor Report for the purposes of promoting and implementing a healthy pedestrian, bicycle, and transit-friendly vision for future development in the Brook Street Corridor.
Thank you, Mr. DeBari. Without objection, we'll include that amendment. Seeing none, I do want to speak briefly to item number 16, ladies and gentlemen. This is the short-term financing that will enable us to acquire Mountain Water Company and sets us up for the long-term financial package. There are two pieces to this resolution I wanted to note for the record and for folks in the audience. We are doing this because the short-term financing eliminates some of the speculation and puts us in a position to borrow the appropriate amount of money when some of the questions that are before the courts are cleared up. We don't need to make a 30-year decision until we have a bit more information. This allows us to make an 18-month decision and still proceed. Low short-term interest rates work to our advantage today. And as I suggested before, there are many fewer unknowns as we get some court decisions. The two pieces before you this evening are Series A acquisition note in the amount of $114 million. What that will do is cover the purchase price of the system, plus legal expenses, plus post-valuation improvements to the system, the cost of issuing these this money, years 1 through 3 of capital projects, and a reserve for any surprises in the capital needs category. The second series, a Series B reserve note, is a $22.4 million note. This will be placed in an interest-earning escrow account and used as contingency. This is something that the bank needed against outstanding but unlikely legal claims. It's insurance that will bear interest, and if we don't need it, we won't spend it. A reminder, these monies are secured only by the water system, not by general tax obligations. There is no effect on property taxes with the issuance of this financing. There is no pledge of the general credit of the City of Missoula, and there is no impact on the city's general obligation bond credit rating. The credit rating for these notes, based on what S&P, Standard & Poor's, knows about the water utility and our management of utilities, is an A rating, which is stable, and they're assuming that we do a good job. So what you're doing tonight is paving the way for us to acquire Mountain Water. We will, upon making a motion for possession, deposit funds in escrow with district court, and proceed based on what Judge Townsend instructs as a function of that order. It is, in short, a big deal, and your staff has worked diligently along with our crack legal team for many years to get to this point. This is a good deal tonight, it's a good deal tomorrow, and it's a good deal for many, many years to come for Missoulians, and your casting your vote this evening, as you did in committee unanimously, indicates your resolve and faith in our community and in the future of this water system to serve many generations of Missoulians to come. With that, are there questions or comments from council members this evening? Ms. Marler?
I wanted to speak to items 15 and 16 also because they are a big deal. This has been going on since about 2011. I was still on city council at the time. So was John Wilkins. So was Dave Strohmeyer, I think. Yeah. When Carlisle Corporation was trying to buy the water company, and they said that if we supported their request to the Public Service Commission, they would sell us the water company. And that didn't happen. Here we are several years later. It's taken some work. I wanted to thank the staff for getting us to where we are, and the legal department who's worked on this since it was apparent when Carlisle was indeed not going to just sell it to us like they said that they would. I want to thank Mayor Engen for your leadership through this, and I want to thank the public of Missoula, all the citizens of Missoula. I think there were several concerted efforts to try to undermine public support for this process, and I think that the public was really clear the whole time that this was important to us. And I was happy to be a part of this. It may be one of the most important things I've been involved with since my time on city council. And I just didn't want this vote to go by without commenting on it and thanking everyone involved.
Mr. Von Osberg?
Thanks. I normally don't write out some notes, but I did in this case. It is a big deal, and I echo all of Marilyn's, Ms. Marler's thanks to the various people. I wanted to make a few comments, though, in the record. Many of us here have read Michael Lewis's 2010 book, The Big Short, about the subprime mortgage and financial market crisis in 2007 and 8, or you might have watched the movie. I believe the most important observation in the book comes in the epilogue, where Lewis identifies the root cause of the behavior underpinning the crises, and he calls it a misalignment of interests. The quote where he talks about this still being an issue despite regulations and superficial changes at the big financial firms goes like this. The changes were camouflage. They helped to distract outsiders from the truly profane event, which was the growing misalignment of interests between the people who trafficked in financial risk and the wider culture. The surface rippled, but down below in the depths, the bonus pool remained undisturbed. So it's this issue, again, the growing misalignment of interests. I think that assessment succinctly and elegantly captures our situation here with the water utility, both the history of private ownership, distant and recent, and the opportunity to course correct, if you will, moving forward under public ownership. Carlisle's interests were never the interests of Missoulians. They were never in this for the long haul, despite assertions to the contrary, and we need a utility owner and operator in it for the long haul, for capital investments in the system, wells, pumps, meters, pipes, that ensure a durable, resilient system sustained by reasonable rates. And Algonquin, Liberty, their interests are most certainly not the interests of Missoulians either, but in a worse way than Carlisle's, I would argue. Algonquin's interests are in profit potential and increasing its dividend 10% a year, period. That is their interest. And the decisions, perhaps more importantly, that support those goals are made in Oakville, Ontario, Canada, with some ineffectual oversight from Helena. When it comes to any utility, it's appropriate to be obsessed with capital investments in the system. That's really what it's all about. And that's why I found this report so critically important, and I'm referencing this. It's a 127-page final report on a management and operations audit of the customer service and accounting functions of Liberty Utilities prepared for the New Hampshire Public Service Commission. I did a lot of reading trying to find out who this company was that was coming into the community. What does it say about Algonquin Liberty? Well, it says a lot, but perhaps these three sentences are the most important. The capital expenditure approvals were based on insufficient evaluations and assessments performed by senior management as a result. The capital budget processes violate the company's own capital expenditure policies as well as that of good utility business practice. The monitoring and control of capital expenditures also shows little attention paid to this area as compared with greater focus on earnings, revenue, and operating expenses. That hits us in rates. That is a misalignment of interests. We can do better. We're going to do that here, locally, with infinitely greater transparency, where the interests of the utility and the community are aligned, and we start that process with respect to funding operations and capital investments with this financing deal before us tonight, and I'm proud to support the motions. Thanks.
And Ms. Jones.
Everybody's making great comments. I just wanted to add in, I spent a lot of time knocking on doors when I campaigned, and the great majority of people in Ward 3 said that this was very important to them, which I had heard it was very important in Missoula across the board, but it was heartening to hear it from individuals in my ward. It was a common theme while I campaigned, and I philosophically certainly understood how important it was to own our water company, but sitting on city council, I spent time talking to people to really understand the dynamics and how the numbers would work going from a for-profit to a non-profit status. And by the time I conducted all of that research and looked into it, I feel very comfortable voting on this, and I think Missoula is excellently situated to make this very successful. So I want to thank all of the people on council who saw this through, because I came in at the very end, and this has been the easy part, frankly. You guys did the heavy lifting. To the mayor and the prior city councils, and to citizens who were supportive of this, and I know citizens who testified during the trial. Thank you for that, and thank you to the legal team and the experts. You guys did a great job. I am so appreciative. So I'm very happy to be voting on this tonight. It's a good day for Missoula.
Mr. Wilkins?
So I think first I need to thank my ward, because I would talk to people in my ward, and everybody I seemed to talk to said, we need our water. We need it to belong to us. So that kept me saying yes to all these things that happen. And I'm a layman to a lot of this stuff, and I appreciate Marilyn's comments and also Brian's comments. And I appreciate the mayor's hard work and our attorney's hard work. And even decisions in the afternoon seem to be great too. So thank you everybody that was involved in this. I appreciate it. I turned my faucet on today, and I think the water ran quicker or something.
Mr. Hess?
Thank you. Many people have alluded to it, but I want to call out that this is a real long game decision. My belief is that when we wake up tomorrow, this action will be judged favorably. I think that based on my understanding of our community and my interactions with my constituents, that is a fundamental truth. But my sincere hope and my sincere belief is that these actions will be judged even more favorably in 100 years or 500 years. This is a really big deal, and I'm proud of my council colleagues. I'm proud of our mayor. I'm proud of our staff and our legal team, and I'm proud of our community. And I'm very pleased to support this tonight.
Ms. Bentley?
I won't repeat what I've already heard tonight, and there's been some really nice comments, but I did want to specifically call out some people who worked really hard on this, and it's my fellow council members, former Councilman Jason Weiner, Council President Marilyn Marler, and especially more than anyone, Councilman Brian von Lossberg, who I know spent from the day we started on council hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours tracking this and following it. And I admit that I rested easy knowing that he was losing sleep, because I knew that how hard he was working, and it's no small task. And thank you, Brian. I know that it was a huge lift, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud of all of us.
Further discussion? Anyone in the audience care to comment on the consent agenda this evening? By a familiar face.
Bruce Bender, for the record, my first public comment. on the items 15 and 16. So as you've already been talking about, obviously the significance of this. So Mayor Engen and City Council, congratulations on this. This is a great moment. The people of Missoula have been waiting for this for a very long time. Congratulations to you, Mayor Engen, for your vision, for your endurance down the long, winding road with a lot of bumps. And to Marilyn Marler and Brian Van Lossberg for your strong leadership. As already been mentioned, the echoes in this chamber are the applause from past mayors and past city councils, especially Mayor John Toole, who was unsuccessful in his acquisition efforts in the 80s. As you already talked about the city staff, I want to recognize Lee Griffin, John Wilson, and Steve Johnson, who have labored for the details, to Jim Nugent, who brought certitude in your guidance. You were there in the 80s, and that was always helpful. To Ginny Marion, who's kept us on message, and especially to Dale Bickle, whose wise financial skills and fortitude was key to making this happen. To the legal team, Harry Schneider, Tasha Jones, Scott Stearns, they not only brought critical legal skills, but they brought a tremendous commitment and belief in the cause. So finally, the cause of bringing essential municipal service to city control always was to the people of Missoula, always right and just. But when ownership of our water was moved to a global market, amidst global issues of climate change. And I'm a believer of that. And for those who know me, I'm not going to break in the song or anything like that right now either. I'm being a believer. But these global issues make our actions so much more imperative and more necessary. As already been stated, this action will benefit our future generations the most. For good quality drinking water will even be more essential to survive the future as it changes with climate change. And because of your actions, future generations will have ownership and control of their drinking water and not some global market company. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bender. Anyone else care to comment? Mr. Moore?
This is a list of your $1,400,000 that you have. It's a slightly different number in the minutes, but it's the list that's going to be paid tomorrow. One of the items in this is a check to Southgate Mall Associates, Development Certificate Number 2, Mary Avenue East Improvements, $643,014. I do not think this should be paid, so I request that you vote against paying this in the consent agenda tonight. There's another one here for, I guess FIP stands for facade improvement from $67,000 and something else for TIF financing for a total of over $48,000 that the taxpayer is going to pay. I think they should be removed from this list and these payments not be made. As far as the water improvement that you're speaking of, 15 and 16, I guess I run in different circles because I haven't found anybody that is in favor of spending this 114 million plus 22 million to purchase the water system. I haven't seen one person. And I've probably talked to, this is people, a waitress or a car wash place, just people I've run across. I haven't found one person. Maybe somebody could tell me or show me a person on the street, a regular person that is approved, wants this thing. In the motion, you talk about to ensure access to clean, affordable, and reliable water. I haven't read, seen, or heard anybody say that we didn't already have clean, affordable, reliable water. Perhaps somebody could show that to me. One of the criteria you have in spending taxpayers' money, says when you look at project financing, are examined to assess the need for TIF assistance. Clearly, if the developer, city, whoever it is, does not need it, it doesn't say want it or want to increase their pocketbook. It says if they need it to do the project. So you're telling me these tens of millions of dollars that's being spent to put a road real close to the shopping center, and I know you got up here and said it's connectivity. That was a big famous word, connectivity. That's why we're connecting this road from Reserve to Brooks. Not true. The only reason we're building that road is the owners of the shopping center wanted it, and they have the power and influence with the mayor and the city council to get that done. Thank you.
Mr. Moore, any other comment on items on the consent agenda this evening? Ms. Matthew Jenkins.
Candy Matthew Jenkins, 1211 Cooper Street. I was here for the city council meeting when Robert Dove and the person from the coalition and the mayor all did their deal. And I don't remember at one time during that whole thing or in days after that, Robert Dove ever gave anybody their word that they would sell to the city, the water company. And I was an eyewitness of all those goings on, and I didn't see that happen. So now you're not going to pay Carlisle, who pays taxes in California, but you're going to be in debt. We are going to be in debt to an international monetary fund, Barclays. How does that sit with you, with the way the markets are going and the problems that we have right here? I'm sure that the water rates will go up because I'm not so sure you've entered in a beneficial agreement, short-term, long-term, or any term, with an international bank. And I'd be really scared of that we can't fund our own water system right here in America. So, but I know what I know, and that doesn't change your minds. I've never seen anything like this, the aggressiveness to take somebody else's property away from them.
Any other general public comment this evening? Seeing none, we've had comments and questions from council, and we'll have a roll call vote on the consent agenda.
On the consent agenda, items 1 through 16 with the amendment to number 7. Let's start roll with Armstrong. Armstrong votes yes. Bentley. Bentley votes yes. Cares. Cares votes yes. Dabari. Dabari votes yes. Hedall. Hedall votes yes. Hess. Hess votes yes. Jones. Jones votes yes. Marler. Marler votes yes. Sweeney. Sweeney votes yes. Von Lossberg. Von Lossberg votes yes. West. West votes yes. And Wilkins. Wilkins votes yes. Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 12 ayes.
And the consent agenda is approved. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll move on to comments from city staff, agencies, boards, commissions, authorities, and the community forum. I'm aware of none of those this evening. We will move on to the public hearing portion of our agenda. State law and our own rules set guidelines for collecting community comment in a formal way on a variety of issues. And following a staff report on each of these items, council will consider the item before it and While we often vote on public hearing items the same evening, one council member can return that item to committee for further consideration. This evening, we're joined by county commissioners to consider the Colin Ditch Grove Street open space acquisition. And our staff report this evening comes from Ms. Erickson. On the public hearing, you'll call the public hearing to order.
Thank you, Mayor Ingen. Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Erickson, and I'm the Open Space Acquisitions Attorney with the City Parks and Recreation Department and the City Open Space Program. And that is a very tough act to follow, the final vote on the acquisition of Mountain Water. But on the same theme of thinking of a global context in which our local community actions are situated, our open space bond programs support local community conservation and community conservation of public lands. And on that note, I am here to present the Colin Ditch Grove Street open space bond proposal and request that the City Council and Commissioners vote to approve the bond expenditure for the acquisition of additional public lands here in Missoula to add to the city's open space and conservation lands network. I would like to start out by thanking the Colin Ditch family, and especially Frank Colin Ditch, who we've been working with on this project for almost a couple years, really. And before I started working on this, my predecessor and a number of other people have been working on this project for many years. The Colin Ditch family has lived on this land for over 100 years. It's been in their family. They have some amazing stories of when the Milwaukee Railroad used to actually go through here and the trains would go through the property. And Frank and his siblings want to protect a portion of their property as open space to honor their grandfather in particular, who has a nickname Coley. And I just want to say thanks to the Colin Ditch family before I get started. So the Colin Ditch property is located west of Reserve Street. It is adjacent to the Clark Fork River. It's in a location where the river is really braided and has moved around a lot in its floodplain. It contains a portion of the Orchard Homes levee. It also contains a section of the Milwaukee Railroad, former historic Milwaukee Railroad, and the existing Milwaukee Trail terminates at Grove Street, which is right next to this property. The property is located primarily within the Clark Fork River Open Space Cornerstone, and the city's open space cornerstones are a way of highlighting geographic priorities for conservation. And the Clark Fork River is also part of an important bird area. It provides a lot of significant wildlife habitat in this area. This property is also located in Ward 6. And this would provide additional trail and parkland connections in a neighborhood that doesn't have as many acres per capita as some other neighborhoods in Missoula. So the acreage that is proposed for sale to the city is part of a larger parcel, and the family intends to pursue a residential townhome development on the remainder portion. You can see in purple here is the land that would be transferred to the city for open space and trail. And then the remainder portion is up here. And the details of that project are still in the works. And it would go through a conditional use and an annexation and zoning process. So you'll hear more details about that when it's ready. But really this type of project is what the new growth policy contemplated for a location like this. It provides a housing development adjacent to a transportation, non-motorized transportation commuter trail with easy access to amenities, to restaurants and stores, and all of that can be accessed via the bike path, with open space land in the opposite direction to provide land for hiking and recreation. So this is a great balance of competing needs oftentimes competing needs in Missoula between housing and open space conservation. Protection of the Clark Fork River corridor is articulated as a high priority in the 2006 open space plan. And more specifically, the open space plan notes a strong need for protecting riparian corridors, in particular the portion of the river that's west of Reserve Street, for their wildlife and water quality values, in addition to allowing recreational access to the river. The open space plan, as well as the open space bond language, prioritize acquisitions for recreational and commuter trails. And this acquisition would serve purposes of the open space bond, the specific purposes, which include protecting water quality, protecting access to the Clark Fork River, protecting wildlife habitat, providing open space and scenic landscape, and providing a key connection and a potential future and recreational and commuter trail, and also managing for growth. So this is a picture of the property looking west from Grove Street. This is standing basically right at the gate on Grove Street, and you can see the old Milwaukee corridor runs essentially where you can see these tire tracks here. And off in the distance is an existing bridge that the Kolendich family intends to transfer to the city as a donation. Their interest in the bridge is a donation in addition to this acquisition. So, as the letter of support from OSAC states, this property is truly a crossroads in both literally and figuratively in conservation efforts in this vicinity. You can see a little purple flag-shaped parcel here, which looks really small in this vicinity map. And all around it are other protected public lands or lands that provide trail connections. This area outlined in blue is the Klaus property that the city acquired in early 2016. It is approximately 75 acres of riparian land that includes mostly a mid-river island. This island was is not accessible except via wade-in access across this channel. So this project will provide actual physical and legal access across that bridge to the Klaus acquisition. This land right here is the Tower Street Conservation Area. It is approximately 80 acres that the city acquired, also using open space bond funds. Here we have conservation easements, so we're also part of the open space bond program. And here we have Fish, Wildlife, and Parks land at Kelly Island, and that's working downriver along the Clark Fork. This is the city's poplar plantation on the Klaus land that the Klaus family retained. The city has a long-term lease on that property. The city recently acquired Eco Compost, which is adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant. This is state land belonging to MDT under the Reserve Street Bridge, and all of these yellow lines are trails. So this is just truly a key anchor point in all of these different conservation efforts in Missoula, west of town. So very exciting for its ability to leverage many, many years of work and efforts in conservation and recreation. So again, the Milwaukee Trail is a huge part of this whole endeavor. This blue line, as most of you know, the actual paved Milwaukee grade or Milwaukee Trail through town is not a perfectly blue straight line. And part of that is because the city had to reacquire those easements long after the Milwaukee Railroad Holdings Company divested its interests back in the 80s. And those sections were sold off piecemeal. And so over time, the city has been able to secure either acquisition or easements for the portion up until Grove Street. And what it really looks like is this snaking zigzag line. Whoops. And going west, we have hopes that it could actually be more consistently along the historic Milwaukee grade. We've worked to secure easements along a portion of this section and are working to get, hopefully, the entire section to get to Schmidt Lane. But the Milwaukee Trail is a specific goal in the city's 2006 Missoula Urban Area Open Space Plan, as well as the Missoula's long-range transportation and active transportation plans. Again, it would provide access to the Clark Fork River and legal and physical access to the Klaus and Clark Fork property. And then the property the Colon Ditch acquisition would hopefully support a future formal trail along the Orchard Homes levee, which there's a trail that is used by the neighborhoods, and would need to be work accomplished in order to make that actually a formal trail, but this would be a step in that direction with the city acquiring some of the land that's next to that levee. So a couple more pictures of the bridge. This is the existing railroad bridge. Right here, it goes across this channel that's not the main channel of the Clark Fork. The main channel is on the other side of the Klaus Island. The bridge, that in its current state, it's not acceptable for public use. It has some gaps between the railroad ties that go across it. The railings are not safe, so part of the budget is requesting money to do an assessment of the safety status of this bridge, an engineering assessment, and then also come up with a budget for what it would take to make it viable for public use. The bond funds can be used for abatement of safety hazards, and so the goal with this would be to find out what it would take to redeck and put some railings in so we can open this up sooner rather than later for public access to the Klaus Island. This is looking from the Klaus property to the east, and the bridge is off in the distance here, and this is a different season. So the budget for the project, the request is up to $320,000. The purchase price for the open space parcel is $255,000. There's some other acquisition and project-related costs. Again, you'll see here that there's the funding request for the baseline assessment for the bridge safety and also the abatement of any hazards related to public use of that. Some of the typical due diligence costs, and then some of the other costs for preparing the site for public use. And currently in the city's portion of the open space bond, there is $824,000 and some change. So if this project is approved at the requested funding amount, the balance of the city's portion of the 2006 bond will be $504,054.09. As with all of the fee acquisition projects, the request is an up to amount, and that's because some of the project-related costs are an estimate. We don't know exactly what those are going to be until they're bid or spent. This represents the ceiling of what this project could cost. If it comes in under budget, that's great. That money would then be returned to the bond fund to be available for other projects. We've had one project recently that we were able to close out, and it came in about $40,000 under budget, and so that's now available for use for other projects. So this again represents the high end of what it could cost. In terms of management costs, the figure that our conservation lands manager uses to calculate management costs is based on the 2010 conservation lands management plan, then increased to 2017 figures, and it's about $137 an acre. This is a relatively small parcel. So in terms of the CLM programs management, it's probably about $600–700. The real management costs are going to come at the date that the trail is developed, and that will be have to come from a different funding source, the actual extension of the Milwaukee Trail. That's something that once we have the land acquisition in place, we can start seeking funding for the trail development. And this final slide is a picture looking at the main channel of the Clark Fork River from the Klaus Island, and this is what will be accessible to the public if this project is approved. And
Was that taken this week?
it was not. It was not taken this week. I think this was taken in late summer, early fall.
Because if it were, we should buy it now.
And I think I'm happy to answer any questions. Kaylee Becker has a staff report for the county.
Ms. Becker? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kaylee Becker with Missoula County Parks, Trails, and Open Lands. And as Elizabeth mentioned, I have a short staff report for this project. As was just overviewed with the budget, if this project was approved by the council and the commissioners, up to $320,000 would be deducted from the city's $5 million share of the open space bond. In February, the Board of County Commissioners determined that the project is a qualified open space project through the adoption of a reimbursement resolution, which qualified the project for funding through the 2006 open space bond. As per the city-county agreement related to the open space bond, the Board of County Commissioners shall approve a qualified open space project that is recommended by the City Council unless A, the project has substantially changed in scope and it no longer meets the purposes of the open space bond, or B, evidence has been presented that raises questions about the lawfulness of the project and the board determines the project to be unlawful. Staff finds that the project meets the following purposes of the open space bond: protecting wildlife habitat, providing open space and scenic landscapes, providing access along rivers and streams, providing or protecting the water quality in a river, managing for growth, and providing recreational and commuter trails. Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becker. So on behalf of the City of Missoula, I will open the public hearing. Commissioner?
Thank you for letting us join tonight for a joint hearing. I would open the hearing for the County Commission.
With that, if anyone would care to comment on this proposed acquisition? Sure.
I'm quicker, I guess. It's Robert Erickson, 945 Longstaff. Commissioners, counselors, thanks for having me. I'm very pleased to speak in support of your resolution tonight. I'm a member of the Open Space Advisory Committee for the city. We've been considering the idea of this project for many years prior to my time on the committee, and it has just been an idea because this property hasn't been open, hasn't been for sale. It's still not for sale. It's only for acquisition by the city at this point, and it's a pretty exciting acquisition. The committee's spent considerable time dreaming of this, and then over the past year, at least considering this particular acquisition, and much gratitude goes to Elizabeth and the city staff for finding this project, for negotiating this project, and for putting it together in a package that provides the most bang for the buck that the city's going to get for projects like this. As the Open Space Committee's letter indicates, this received unanimous approval from all of the members, and I can tell you beyond unanimous recommendation for approval, people are just plain old excited about this one. I'll highlight just a couple of the features Elizabeth spoke about, but they are worth some emphasis. Number one, this is a key parcel for continuing on the Milwaukee Trail. The Milwaukee Trail currently ends where this property starts. There could be no more expansion of the Milwaukee Trail without this particular property. It's that important. That, of course, has been a long-term goal for the city for many, many years. Ultimately, this will be one of the important and final pieces to allow us to continue that trail over the Clark Fork River and ultimately to Mullen Road with the existing trails already out that direction. Equally as exciting, I think, are the access opportunities that this parcel provides. Elizabeth spoke very eloquently about the Klaus project, which we vetted and the council approved last year. That's a spectacular piece of property as well. Among other things are the Riparian Island, which is along the Clark Fork corridor, particularly so close to the city limits, is relatively untouched. It's a very spectacular piece of property, but it's not accessible without this property, the Colinich property that you're considering tonight. Not only does it provide legal access, but it also provides physical access by way of the existing railroad bridge. The Klaus property came with half of that bridge, but half of a bridge doesn't quite get you where you need to go. This is the other half of that bridge. The bridge, you saw the photos, it needs some work, but I'm not an engineer, but I suspect it's structurally sound. Pickup trucks, utility pickup trucks drive across it. I think it can support non-motorized traffic. It'll need some safety improvements for sure, but once done, this will provide access not only to the Klaus property island, the western portion of that island, which is currently city-owned, the Tower Street. Again, adjacent to that is conservation easement property, and then you have, of course, Kelly Island. The big picture is that you'll have a 4-mile stretch of contiguous, permanently protected riparian habitat, which is going to be a gem for this city. It was nice to hear long-term thinking tonight about other issues. Well, this is another long-term project that is maybe not as important, maybe not as big, but it's certainly a big piece of our puzzle too. I respectfully urge the council and the commissioners to adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Mr. Flash.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Flesh. I am here to support the use of open space bond funds to purchase the parcel mentioned to the west of Grove Street. If approved, I look forward to using this open space and especially the trail. I also believe that many of my neighbors and fellow Missoulians will use the open space and the trail in the same way. I could go on much longer and talk about all of the benefits that I see to this space and this trail, but I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flesh. Anyone else this evening?
Bob Moore. I wish to express my opinion that this should not be an expenditure of the city. Every time I hear the word trail or open space or riparian, whatever it is, we got to buy it. So from now on, I think you should just pass a resolution that says, if you want us to spend any of our money, just put the word trail in there, and it's a good investment, and buy it, write the check.
Anyone else this evening? All right. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing on behalf of the city. Commissioner?
I'll close the hearing for the commissioners.
And discussion on the motion. Ms. Karras?
I am happy to vote in support of this today. As discussed during the committee meeting when we heard this item, I and other council members agree with staff and OSAC that this is an incredibly crucial piece and is absolutely in the spirit of the open space bond that was passed. And as a resident of Ward 6, I am so pleased for myself and the fellow residents in our area to have this area. As the OSAC representative mentioned, that if this didn't happen, the Milwaukee Trail would never continue. If this was a residential all the way throughout this property, we would never be able to continue west. And so it's incredibly important, and I'm incredibly excited to vote yes tonight.
And because I'm a little bit dumb, this is actually the question period. I apologize. But we'll have discussion after the motion, and that was great discussion.
I have no questions.
It was entirely appropriate. That's what I asked for. Are there questions from council members? All right, Mr. Dabari.
I have a question for Ms. Erickson. Can you go to slide number 5? I just wanted to check the parcel boundaries.
Let's see.
That's it. So the small chunk of land to the west of the purple and the bridge portion, that's going to remain in the Colinditch, Colinditch ownership?
No, so these lines, this is part of the work that we're doing to, and working with the Colinditch family to take the property through a boundary line relocation. These lines represent the legal property boundaries that show up when you see the parcel line outlines in the property information system. So really sorry, I can't get this pointer to work. The survey that was done, the draft survey, shows that the property goes to this place. We're still figuring out the status of this little section that has part of the bridge as part of it. I'm trying to explain this in a nutshell. There's a discrepancy between the deed for the Kolendich family and the historic plat for the Milwaukee Railroad. The plat shows that it stops in one spot and the deed shows that it stops in another, and there's just a little bit of a discrepancy. It's less relevant in this situation because the intent in this project is that the bridge will be transferred to the city. It's just figuring out how to draw those parcel boundaries to make the boundary line relocation work. And I will also point out that Paul Forsting from Territorial Landworks, who's representing the family for the development portion, is here if you have additional questions about the development portion too. Did that answer your question?
Oh, almost. So
Okay.
there's that little, it looks like a triangular piece to the west, that down, yep, that chunk in there.
This
So-
piece?
Yep. So I'm looking at the cadastral online, and it shows that that's a part of Kolendich LLC, but it's not a part of the conservation easement, correct?
Any of the
acquisition,
Kolendich
sorry.
LLC ownership that extends out into this area will be transferred to the city also.
Okay.
When we acquired the Klaus property, we didn't do a retracement survey of these islands. So the city essentially acquired all of the Klaus ownership of this land. Where that exact boundary is drawn here, we're still working through that line with the boundary line relocation. The draft survey for the Kolendich property is this purple parcel. These lines that show up in the property information system, the GIS system is not always entirely accurate. So what you're seeing in cadastral is not necessarily what the deeds and the surveys show.
Thanks.
Further questions? Commissioners have any questions?
I just have a follow-up with Elizabeth. So the final, after you've done all your due diligence, the final document will reflect there won't be any gaps between the Kolendich property and the
Correct.
Klaus property.
Yep,
Okay.
that's exactly right.
Any further questions? All right, with that, I would ask Commissioner Curtis to make a motion on behalf of commissioners.
So I'll ask for a motion from one of the commissioners.
Commissioner Curtis, I move that the Missoula Board of County Commissioners adopt a resolution to expend up to $320,000 from the city's portion of the 2006 open space bond funds for the purchase of approximately 4.6 acres and projected related costs based on findings that the project qualifies for funding, that the city has referred a recommendation of approval, that the project meets the purposes of the open space bond, and that the project has not been determined unlawful. This is contingent upon receipt of the signed city approval resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, commissioners, and Mr. Von Lossberg.
Thanks. It's my pleasure to move we adopt a resolution to expend up to $320,000 of 2006 open space bond proceeds to purchase and fee the Kolendich Grove Street property, approximately 4.6 acres of land adjacent to the Clark Fork River, to expand the city's open space and conservation lands network, extend the Milwaukee Trail, and pay transaction and project-related costs associated with the acquisition. May I speak to it briefly?
Mr. Von Lossberg.
Thank you. I'll just simply add my thanks, particularly to Ms. Becker and Ms. Erickson, next to seeing my daughter come to council for Superheroes of Kindness night. I enjoy seeing you two the most, and I want to thank Mr. Erickson and all of OSAC for your continued excellent work on behalf of all the residents in the community, and I want to thank the Kolendich family. This is a real gem in our expanding network of open space lands, so thanks.
And now, discussion on the motion. Mr. Wilkins.
So I also want to thank staff. I've always said this is one of the most better things that we do on council. And I got two 19-month-old twin boys that I know someday are going to be walking down these trails, and they're going to be very happy that we did this. So for our future kids and our future people and the people right now, this is an important bland decision that you made, and I appreciate it.
For the record, those are Mr. Wilkins' grandchildren, unless something's happened that we're not aware of. Ms. West.
I also want to thank everyone for their hard work on this project. Tower Road is one of my family's favorite spots to go, especially after that flood a couple of years ago. You could build great forts, but this will be a really nice access point to get across and venture out into the islands without having to wade through water, which can be kind of dangerous at times. And I also think that the long-term potential here is amazing to connect, the entire valley, multiple valleys, really. So I think this is great. Thank you.
Ms. Marler.
I echo a lot of what some of my colleagues have said. This is just incredible for the project itself, and even better for the long-term prospects and connecting things together. And as Ms. Erickson and Ms. Cares both mentioned, this is a part of town that doesn't have North Hills, South Hills, Jumbo, Sentinel, and our section of the trail, which we just got a few years ago, the Milwaukee Road Trail, gets so much use, but it's still mostly not along the river until you get down past Russell Street. So this will be an easy, much needed connection to an actual natural area within a few miles of my house. It's going to be amazing, and I just feel so good to be a part of this, and this night just keeps getting better. Good things to vote for. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Further discussion? Commissioners? All right.
So we voted, but I would like to add to the, it's just great to see these projects come together and add that access to our public lands, our public water, not just drinking water, but the swimming water. This, again, is one of our favorite things to do also.
With that, we have had a public hearing. We'll have a roll call vote.
On the resolution, Bentley. Bentley votes yes. Cares. Cares votes yes. DeBari. DeBari votes yes. Heddall. Heddall votes yes. Hess. Hess votes yes. Jones. Jones votes yes. Marler. Marler votes yes. Swaney. Swaney votes yes. Von Lossberg. Von Lossberg votes yes. West. West votes yes. Wilkins. Wilkins votes yes. And Armstrong. Armstrong votes yes. Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 12 ayes.
And the motion is approved. Congratulations and thank you again. And thank you, commissioners, for joining us this evening. You're welcome to stay. But you never do. We'll move on then to communications from the mayor. I will pass this evening. We'll begin general comments from council members this evening with Ms. Heddall and Ms. Jones, Mr. Von Lossberg, Mr. Hess, Ms. Swaney, Mr. Wilkins.
Well, I should have said when I talked before about my grandchildren, when they get a little older, I can always tell them to go take a hike.
Ms. Marler.
Housekeeping item, Ms. Bentley, because of a conflict with work that's short-term, wants to be on just the committee of the whole, and she'd like to be temporarily removed from all the other committees.
Yeah. And Ms. Bentley, Ms. Armstrong, Ms. West. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Armstrong?
So I probably should have said this earlier during the water acquisition, but I'll read this now. Today, our council approved the financing of a revenue bond to purchase Mountain Water Company. This process was started years before my term on council began, and like many others in our community and my ward, I had a profound sense of disconnect to the city's acquisition of the water utility. Whether that was due to the unique policies and legal actions that were used to approve and facilitate the acquisition, or through a perceived lack of communication, a great deal of uncertainty surrounded this landmark case in our community. Over the past years, many of you read headlines that said things like City of Missoula sues to acquire water company, or City being sued by water employees. And while these headlines were technically correct, they did not properly convey the spirit of this transaction. From a practical point of view, for the customers, it will be as if we are switching out the current shareholders for the bondholders and the board of directors for city management. although technically the legal structure might be different. Your service will not change. My hope is that the vision for a city-owned water utility remains clear, delivering value and reliability to our customers and employees in perpetuity. The media justifiably sank its teeth into this case and made sure that it stayed front and center for a very long time. I will not speak for the rest of council, but I want to personally apologize to the employees of Mountain Water for what they've gone through over the past few years. I'm sorry that you suffered the anxiety of not knowing what was happening with the future of your employer, for the constant tension involved with reading daily headlines, and for any trauma induced by hearing disparaging statements made regarding the quality of your work. This is a good thing. We will all go forward, and I'm truly sorry for any of the stress that you or your families may have undergone.
Ms. West?
All right, I just wanted to point out the 0 to 50 open or community listening sessions that are going to be happening starting March 2nd, and 2 of those are going to be taking place in proximity to my ward. One is going to be at the Missoula Public Library on March 8th, and the day before that, on March 7th, there's going to be one on the west side in the Burn Street Center. So come participate and help us reduce what we send to the landfill. Thank you.
And Ms. Kears.
I'd like to thank KECI for their recent story about city employee expenditures. I think this is an example of the ways in which the public can take time to explore city data and come back with their analysis. While I wonder about the intent behind the story, I think in the end it is a good thing. I hope city administration will evaluate our employee expense policies to ensure overspending or inappropriate spending, if currently in existence, does not occur in the future. I hope that City Council will support big data opportunities as they arise, opportunities that K-12 and college students could explore, that data companies could use to make decisions about moving here, and that, yes, local news stations can spend time analyzing, sharing their findings, and bettering our community.
Mr. Tabari.
So I'd like to note that Ms. Jones will be serving as vice chair of the Land Use and Planning Committee, and I also want to thank my colleagues who spoke in favor of the water acquisition. You said many of the things that I had in my mind, and I could keep the meeting shorter by not speaking.
With that, we'll move on to committee reports. These items were not approved unanimously in standing council committees, and we consider these items based on the motion of the chair of that committee. We'll, of course, take public comment on these items as well. Our lone committee report happens in Public Works this evening. Mr. Hess.
Thank you. I move we award the bid for street and drainage improvements project 16-016 Hauling Farms Track 2 Clark Fork Lane to Doug Smith Grading LLC for Schedule A of $174,681.40 and Schedule B of $24,872.70 for a total of $199,554.10, and authorize the return of bid bonds. And I'd like to speak to the motion.
Mr. Hess.
This is a really important project west of Reserve Street. This provides for I'm trying to dance around the word connectivity, but I can't. Because connectivity is important, and this is a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of the collectors that are in planning documents that have been adopted by the county and jointly by the city county through the MPO. This builds a portion of a needed collector roadway. And there were some questions in the committee meeting about why this doesn't build the entirety of the collector roadway. We received by email an explanation from Kevin Slovarp about this project being segmented as land becomes available. That explanation was satisfactory to me, and I support the motion, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Further discussion on the motion? Ms. Kears?
I'll support the motion, but I don't agree that it would have been impossible to build this entire road. It is my understanding, based on the email that we received, that it is possible, if there had been outreach earlier, for us to have built this entirely, because there's interest from that property owner. It's also my impression that we did not do so until council asked about it at committees last Wednesday. So I'm disappointed in that. I think I have that understanding correctly, and if I don't, I would hope that someone would correct me. But I will support it because I understand the importance of folks who are going to be living in the apartments that are being built right now. Obviously, they need the infrastructure to leave the homes, and we do have a housing dearth, and so I'll approve or support the motion.
Further discussion? Seeing none, anyone in the audience care to comment? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote.
On the contract, awarding the bid, Cares. Cares votes yes. Dabari. Dabari votes yes. Heddle. Heddle votes yes. Hess. Hess votes yes. Jones. Jones votes yes. Marler. Marler votes yes. Sweeney. Sweeney votes yes. Van Lossberg. Van Lossberg votes yes. West. West votes yes. Wilkins. Wilkins votes yes. Armstrong. Armstrong votes yes. And Bentley. Bentley votes yes. Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 12 ayes.
And the motion is approved. We have no additional committee reports. We do have a legislative update that is available to you in your packets. I will note for the record, Mr. Bickle and I were in Helena on Wednesday testifying on behalf of the Bridge and Road Safety Bill presented by Representative Frank Garner. There were something on the order of 50 souls testifying in favor of that piece of legislation, which would provide a considerable boost to the city of Missoula's ability to repair, maintain, and construct roads and bridges. There was some opposition. No action, no executive action has been taken on that bill. We've had a couple of weeks of leaning into legislation that is anti-TIF. There were lots of folks from all over the state who employ that really lone economic development tool that's allowed municipalities in the state of Montana to make things happen. Lots of support for TIFs, and much of the bad stuff is beginning to disappear. So we'll keep plugging as we approach the midpoint of the legislature. Any of you all have any items you want us to look at this week? Ms. West? Sure.
All right, so I wanted to update what is happening with House Bill 361, which I had asked the City of Missoula to oppose, which revised the SNAP eligibility downward, and that was tabled in committee on the 22nd. So it's done for now.
Thank you. Anything else on the legislature? Mr. Von Lossberg?
Just a comment for those of you who've been tracking there are many bills dealing with net metering and solar energy. Unfortunately, House Bill 504 was killed in committee recently. Our local representative Bennett brought this forward. It almost got out of committee. It was on a tie vote. Pleased to see former Councilman Adam Hurt supported the bill. But I couldn't help comment. Representative Skis from Kalispell made the comment that solar is, quote, not ready for prime time. I assure the representative that the dozen solar companies that operate in Missoula and are a vital part of the economic work that happens here and the jobs and the installations they do would disagree with it. It is perhaps the dumbest comment I read about today. Though they did also debate guns in schools, so there might have been something there.
Further discussion on legislative items? Sorry, Ms. West?
I have a more embarrassing question that just demonstrates my ignorance of state legislature. Is there a way someone could explain to us maybe next week what the processes are for things that are tabled to come back and what the difference between tabling and dying is?
Sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, we have no additional new business. Are there any additional items to be referred? Seeing none, we do have a miscellaneous communication report, petition, and/or announcement, and that is the administratively approved agreement report is available to you all. Any questions, comments on that? All right, seeing none, as always, ladies and gentlemen, I am grateful for you and for your service, and we will be adjourned.